with our awards. But we have many online today due to these restrictions about the pandemic. So we will raise some questions to you, and we have simultaneous translation here. So I'll now introduce you 2 minutes in Spanish, and after that we'll start, well, we'll wait for the questions from our journalists in this room. So I'll move to Spanish just 1 minute. El doctor Hoffmann nació en Luxemburgo, luego fue a vivir a Estrasburgo y heredó de su padre la afición por los insectos.
Daniel.
Él, a los 17 años, ya hizo una publicación científica. Imagínense su curiosidad temprana por los temas de la ciencia. Luego se casó con también una gran investigadora, Daniel, que le ha acompañado todos estos años en sus investigaciones sobre un campo denominado inmunología. Lo que buscó el doctor Hoffmann fue siempre los mecanismos por los que los insectos se protegen de los microbios, como hacemos el resto de animales en el planeta, incluidos los mamíferos. Y, bueno, ha dado lugar a un campo de investigación que está dando grandes resultados. Él luego abandonó al saltamontes, que fue su insecto preferido, y lo cambió por una mosca, pero lo que dio es lugar a un campo científico que hoy día tiene un gran atractivo. Todos estos trabajos le acreditaron para recibir su Premio Nobel en el año 2011 en Medicina y Fisiología, compartido con otros dos grandes investigadores, y hoy lo tenemos aquí para que ustedes le pregunten todo lo que les parezca. Así que abrimos. So we now move to the press conference. There was a short introduction I made. ¿Quién quiere empezar? Oh, they are telling me, could you move your camera maybe a little bit downwards? So
Myself?
Yeah, yourself. You look pretty, but we want you, no, the other, no, not too far. That's correct. There you go. Very nice. Thank you very much. Concha.
Welcome.
Buenos días. Good morning. Yo quería preguntar por el tema, por supuesto, del coronavirus, que es la actualidad en este momento. Quería preguntarle que hasta que llegue una vacuna, de la que sé que es usted ferviente defensor de las vacunas, y se administre de forma masiva, ¿a qué nos enfrentamos? ¿Cree que puede llegar una inmunología de grupo?
The question is concerns coronavirus, of course, which is our pandemic right now. And we know that you are a strong defender of vaccines. You're fighting for vaccines. But until a massive vaccination arrives, what is going to happen? Do you think we're going to reach herd immunity?
Well, I think the best attitude we can have now is to block the transmission of the virus from people to people. You see this by social barriers, by not having festivities together, by being very careful whom you meet, how long you are, what distance you are, and so on. This is, in my view, the best way for the time being to block the transmission. Now, it's interesting to see that this is exactly what Hippocrates, the Greek founder of medicine, recommended for the pests in around 400 before current era. So it is not an enormous progress, because what he said is, if you see a pandemic, they weren't speaking, did not speak about pandemic, but if you see a pest arriving, get away as quickly as you can, stay away as long as you can, and come back only as late as you can. So this was in 400 before the current era. And we are still in that situation for the time being. But the progress which is being made is enormous. I mean, never in the history of medicine, of infections, has been so much progress than in the last 8 months. We know a lot about the virus now, and we have a lot of, there isn't yet not a direct therapy coming. Also, you know, there's some companies which are preparing monoclonal antibodies which were administered to a politician whom you probably know very well. And but the vaccines are progressing. The work towards vaccines is progressing very quickly. And as soon as vaccines will be available massively, that is going, I frankly believe this is going to block the transmission. And just one example, I have strong contact with China. I have myself, I'm responsible for a group of scientists there in Guangzhou. And they have now, all the people, more than 100,000 people who are in contact with hospitals and so on, have been vaccinated now. So we do not know all the results yet, but I'm very positive. And as you may be aware of, there are about probably close to 250 attempts to produce vaccines, which is very good, because vaccines are never identical and never induce similar reactions or identical reactions. So the more we have vaccines, the better it will be.
La actitud adecuada es la de tratar de bloquear la transmisión, es decir, evitar las celebraciones, ser muy cuidadosos sobre dónde vamos. Esa es la mejor manera para bloquear la transmisión, como ya nos decía Hipócrates en el año más o menos 400 a.C. Sus recomendaciones: ¿ves venir una plaga, una peste? Dice, bueno, pues apártate lo más rápido que puedas y vuelve lo más tarde que puedas a ese lugar. Bueno, estamos siendo testigos de un progreso realmente espectacular en la medicina en los últimos 8 meses en términos de conocimientos de la pandemia, aunque no hay todavía una terapia directa, pero sí muchos intentos por crear una vacuna, y estos intentos van progresando. Por ejemplo, diré que yo tengo contactos en China, concretamente en Guangzhou, y ahí ya hay 100.000 personas que están en contacto con los sanitarios y con el mundo sanitario, 100.000 personas que ya han sido vacunadas. Y en este momento hay 250 intentos de creación de vacunas, que no van a ser idénticas, van a cubrir distintos espectros, van a tener distintos efectos, pero es muy esperanzador.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Maybe if you cut the answers, maybe in 2, 3, Dr. Hoffmann. Yeah. So the translator might help to her that you let her go maybe step by step.
I promise.
Okay, thank you. Siguiente pregunta, por favor.
Ana Alonso, de Agencia Europa Press.
Hola, buenos días. Precisamente esta carrera que hay por las vacunas hace temer a mucha gente que no se estén respetando los tiempos de seguridad adecuados y teme que peligren, se teme a veces que esta rivalidad entre países por ser el primero que logre la vacuna, también por motivos tanto políticos, de prestigio como económicos, haga peligrar un poco la seguridad de esas vacunas. ¿Usted piensa que es así o que las vacunas sí que tendrán totalmente la fiabilidad?
Sorry, in this competition to get the vaccine, some people are afraid that there will be not enough safety because of the competition, because everyone wants to get there before the rest of them, and particularly politicians and as well as pharmaceutical companies. Do you think this rivalry, this competition, may endanger safety in a way?
Well, I would look at it the other way. I mean, when you have a competition, everyone in the competition knows that other people work in the same direction, so they will be very careful. And it's like competition for building up cars or planes. I mean, if there is a competition, it's sort of an insurance that there will be a high quality, because otherwise, just imagine some of these big companies, if they produce a poor vaccine, if they sell it too early, they will lose their prestige, and it will be very bad for their business. So I think the same is true politically. Although sometimes you do not know exactly anymore where we stand with international politics, geopolitics. But okay, time will tell us.
Creo que es más bien al revés, que la competencia significa que todos están en la misma carrera, yendo en la misma dirección. Es como la competencia para fabricar coches, para fabricar aviones, que de alguna forma llevan a productos más seguros y de calidad más alta. Si una vacuna se produce y resulta ser deficiente, el efecto es la pérdida de prestigio para la empresa que la produzca. Por otra parte, es verdad que la geopolítica pues, es un ámbito indescifrable a veces.
So, thank you very much. Next question. Siguiente pregunta, por favor.
Sí. Yo quería preguntar a usted como científico, como investigador, ¿cómo está observando las actitudes de algunos presidentes de estados importantes, de políticos en esta pandemia? Y de los enfrentamientos que está habiendo en algunos gobiernos por el tema de su control.
As a scientist, what do you think about the attitude of certain presidents of important states regarding this pandemic and the confrontations also between chiefs of state or politicians regarding this, the valuation, the perspective about coronavirus?
Well, my answer would be that I regret that politicians get so strongly involved. I think that's not helpful, particularly what we see now between, as you say, very strong and big countries, what is happening. I think it's not positive for the whole field. It will be better that politicians stay out of that and just say that they do their best to support research in the directions of helping overcoming this pandemic, and to not make it a point for winning or losing an election, which is not good. Simply.
Bueno, yo la verdad es que lamento mucho determinadas actitudes de políticos, como dice usted, de países fuertes e importantes. Yo creo que los políticos deberían apartarse y no politizar este tema. Su papel debería ser simplemente apoyar la investigación, apoyar todos los intentos que se están haciendo para resolver este problema.
Thank you very much. Siguiente pregunta.
Ernesto Urriaga, de Televisión Española.
Buenos días. A mí me gustaría pedirle una reflexión, no solo desde el punto de vista científico, también social. En España, pero no solo en España, hay una preocupación por el comportamiento de los jóvenes, y desde el punto de vista inmunológico parece que también las diferencias del sistema inmunológico de los jóvenes y las personas mayores están detrás de los casos asintomáticos. Parece que la mayor agresividad de o la respuesta más agresiva de nuestro sistema inmunológico es precisamente la que provoca los casos más graves, y esta no se da en los jóvenes, que parecen comportarse en algunos sitios como como si fueran realmente invulnerables. A mí me gustaría que nos hiciera alguna reflexión, tanto desde el punto de vista científico, sobre ese comportamiento diferente del sistema inmunológico, pero también algún consejo, alguna advertencia sobre bueno, el comportamiento social en este caso.
I would like you to give us some reflection in a social as well as scientific, in scientific terms, about, are you concerned about the behavior of young people in this coronavirus crisis in terms, because it seems that their immune system reacts in a different way to older people, and they are asymptomatic. So it seems that the response of the body is more aggressive, is worse in the case of not young people or not so young. And so maybe this makes these young people feel invulnerable, that they cannot be attacked by the disease. Do you have any advice to give us about this?
I mean, we're, you know that I'm living in France and we are confronting the same problem. I mean, basically, as far as science can tell for the time being, the reactions against the virus are the same in all humans. But the immune system becomes tired over age. And obviously it is less aggressive, as you say, or less efficient. Let me say, I have to be careful for my own age, less efficient over 70 years, let us say. And so this, of course, everyone knows. And so young people often say, at least that's what I hear in this country, they often say, well, look, this is not a real problem for the society, because the old people anyhow, the old people who are fragile are people who have what you call comorbidities. Let's say they have diabetes, they have, not all, but some have diabetes, some have obesity, some are obese and so on. And so it is very difficult to, you know, young people do not love to listen. When I was young, I also didn't want to listen always to the older generation at that time. But I cannot really tell you what we could do in just being kind and not trying to persuade them. You cannot, or you do it like in China. They have, as you know, of course, a totally different political system. And that system allows them to say, you just stop, you don't do it. If you do it, you go, you spend 2 or 3 weeks in jail. And so, and that's, well, that's a choice of society. That's not the one which is going on right now in the European countries, nor in the United States, I guess. So bottom line, there is no other way than just persuading the young people and telling them that they have to be careful and they should not. Transmission is the biggest problem right now, before we have a real medicine, which we might have, real medicine, I mean, which we might have a pill, for instance, which we might have in 1 year or so, but vaccines we'll have before that. And when vaccines will come up, then we will be able, the whole international community will be able to not to stop immediately, but at least to lower the incidence of this disease. And if you lower the incidence, then of course there's less transmission and so on. So I'm really positive in that sense. Why am I'm sorry, I'll let you translate and just say why I'm positive.
Okay, thank you. Bueno, en Francia tenemos el mismo problema exactamente y las reacciones son las mismas. Es cierto que el efecto sobre el organismo puede ser igual. Ahora bien, el sistema inmune cambia con la edad y de alguna manera en las personas mayores el sistema inmune se fatiga. Y, por ejemplo, con personas de más de 70 años, como es mi caso, ¿no? Mientras que en las personas jóvenes no ocurre lo mismo. Y además las personas jóvenes en el fondo piensan, bueno, estos no son los problemas reales de nuestra sociedad, porque estas personas mayores además tienen comorbilidades, es decir, tienen otras enfermedades además del coronavirus, como puede ser la diabetes, como puede ser la obesidad, que los hace más propensos al agravamiento de su situación. Entonces, también depende de la cultura de los países. En China, por ejemplo, como estaba diciendo, te dicen, no hagas eso, lo haces, pues te meten 3 semanas en la cárcel y ya está, no pasa nada. Pero en los países europeos o en Estados Unidos esto no se puede hacer. Lo único que se puede hacer frente a las personas jóvenes es la persuasión, tratar de convencerlos de ser cuidadosos, de esperar, porque llegará un momento en que habrá vacunas y esto va a disminuir el impacto del coronavirus entre nosotros. Okay, you can go on.
Del diario digital El Confidencial. ¿O quieres seguir hablando?
Something else. You wanted to say something else?
Yes, let me say that. Why I have had the occasion to meet journalists in several countries over the last 3 weeks, and they always are surprised that I'm so optimistic. Why am I optimistic? Well, as was said in the introduction, I'm an immunologist. I was trained as an immunologist, and to produce a vaccine, an efficient vaccine, you have to find out the mechanism of that virus, how the virus attacks the body and how the immune system against that virus reacts. And we didn't know anything. I mean, the community didn't know anything about this really in the beginning of this year. There was a precedent that was SARS, the first type of SARS, 2003. So some information was already available. But now it has become absolutely clear by the published work of some very important laboratories around the world that this SARS-CoV-2 induces a very strong, potent response of the innate immunity that we knew, but the adaptive immunity also, that is to say, allowing for vaccinations. For specialists, it would be the T and the B cells become activated, antibodies are formed, and cytotoxic T cells are activated, and they have memory, so they will be able to respond to a second infection or to build up an efficient immunity after vaccine.
Bueno, algunos periodistas me preguntan por qué soy tan optimista, quizá porque soy inmunólogo. Y yo lo que creo es que para tener una vacuna eficiente, lo primero es ver cuál es el mecanismo de efecto del virus sobre nuestro organismo y la reacción del organismo, ¿no? Tenemos información del SARS 2003, tenemos trabajo muy importante publicado sobre el SARS-CoV-2, y lo que sí que vemos es que hay dos tipos de respuesta del organismo. Una es la inmunidad innata, es decir, la propia, y otra es la inmunidad adaptativa, que es la inducida por las vacunas. Y sabemos que se activan las células del sistema inmune, las células T y B, y además esta reacción de estas células tiene memoria. Es decir, que puede seguir siendo eficiente para el futuro.
Siguiente.
Romero, del digital El Confidencial.
Hola, buenos días, doctor. Yo quería preguntarle, desde el punto de vista de los efectos múltiples que el virus tiene en el organismo, sí que es verdad que nos ha cogido a todos como un poco por sorpresa. Seguramente a ustedes, los inmunólogos, no. Pero yo sí quería saber un poco desde una perspectiva divulgativa qué diferencia hay entre este virus y otros y en qué medida nos ha cogido por sorpresa y en qué medida podría volver a repetirse una situación parecida como esta, donde parecía que teníamos a todos los microorganismos controlados, ¿no? o a los bichos más o menos controlados, y de pronto nos ha cogido tan de sorpresa a todos, ¿no? Incluso yo creo a los propios científicos.
Well, my question is about the multiple effects that coronavirus seem to have on the human body. And this has taken us by surprise. So is there a difference between this virus and other viruses? Can this surprise be repeated again? What can you tell us about this? Can we find again this kind of microorganisms?
Well, one reason why this virus is so toxic to us is that it interacts through its spike protein on the cover of the virus. It interacts with a receptor which is present in many of the cells on the blood vessels. including and on the airways, of course. It starts from the airways, but then on the blood vessels. And so this can explain that we have effects on the renal system, we have effects on the cardiac system. We also have effects, as you know, on the brain system, because there are a certain number of problems, well, losing, for instance, very like taste and so on. And so it is, particularly in that sense, it's not the only one, but it's in that sense, it is particularly dangerous because it can thrive, it can develop on many of the cells boarding the blood vessels. And as we said already, of course, on the airways, on this epithelia of the airways, epithelia, and the blood vessels. Now, this is not the case for all viruses. So again, I say we have to get a vaccine or discover, like in the case of hepatitis C, where there is one molecule which can block the virus. And it is possible that such molecules will be eventually found. And every week in the newspapers, I mean, in the scientific newspapers, you hear about efforts to find, to develop really, so what would be a molecule which cures directly, which kills directly this virus. But we're not there yet. But that may come eventually. You know, what you always have to realize is that never in the history of medicine has there been so much progress in so few months as in this case. And which is due to the fact, number one, of course, that it has a very strong impact on economy, on, of course, of the lives of people and the economy. But on the other hand, it's also due to the fact that biology has advanced enormously over the last 40, 50 years. I often say that the progress in biology has been, in biomedicine, if you wish, has been in the last 50 years more important than between Hippocrates and the Second World War. So, I mean, we have all the reasons to be very optimistic now. But of course, nothing goes as quickly as we would like, but it goes so much more, it's so more rapid now than it would have been 20, 30, 50 years ago.
Okay, thank you. Sí, bueno, efectivamente no es igual que otros virus en el sentido de su cubierta proteínica y de estas puntas que tiene, que lo que hacen es interactuar con los receptores, tanto de las células sanguíneas como de las del sistema respiratorio. Y eso hace, esa interacción con las células sanguíneas, hace que pueda tener efectos negativos sobre el sistema renal, el cardíaco y el sistema nervioso, como hemos visto estos efectos sobre el olfato, por ejemplo, o el sentido del gusto. Y esto es peligroso que pueda tener esta interacción, porque lo que quiere decir es que este virus es capaz de prosperar dentro de los vasos sanguíneos, dentro de las vías respiratorias también. Y esto no ocurre con el resto de los virus. Ahora bien, yo soy optimista porque hemos visto, por ejemplo, que en el caso de la hepatitis C sí que se ha encontrado una molécula que bloquea la enfermedad. Y vemos en las revistas científicas actualmente constantemente la investigación sobre moléculas que curen el virus, pero eso todavía no ha sucedido. Repito que nunca se ha hecho tanto progreso y tan rápidamente en la investigación sobre un microorganismo. Es verdad que están en juego las vidas humanas, está en juego también la economía, pero es verdad que el progreso en la biomedicina, en la biología, en la rama de la biomedicina que se ha realizado en los últimos años no tiene ningún precedente. Y eso es lo que hace que yo me sienta optimista.
Muchas gracias. Siguiente pregunta, por favor.
De nuevo, Europa Press.
Sí, quería preguntar si existen unos motivos más allá de las políticas que ejerce cada país para explicar un poco las diferencias de incidencia, de afectación del virus, tanto por distintos continentes como dentro de un mismo continente en distintos países. Y en ese caso, concretamente, en España, porque en España la incidencia del virus es mucho mayor, es de los países, sino el más de mayores de toda Europa. Y luego, por otro lado, aprovechando ya que tengo para hacer la pregunta, quería si podría aventurar un poco esta segunda ola, cómo va a seguir evolucionando, sobre todo con la llegada del frío y con el virus de la gripe, cómo van a interaccionar los dos virus.
So well, it's a double question. First of all, what do you think are the reasons for the differences we see in the prevalence of the virus in different countries, even within the same continent? For example, in Spain, we have a very large impact of the virus as compared to other European countries. This is one question. And the second question, what do you think about this second wave of the virus? What is going to be the evolution? What's going to be the interaction between the flu virus and coronavirus?
Regarding the first question, I think it is a matter of organization of the health systems, which is different from one country to the other. Of course, I'm living in Alsace, in Strasbourg, and so we're on the border with Germany. And there was a time when we believed that the Germans had been more efficient than the French. Now, more recently, this difference is less apparent. And but basically, I think essentially, why did the Americans have among the best biomedical research centers, why did they lose so many people? Well, it's a matter of organization of the health system. It's a matter of the impact of the politicians and of their choices. Why did the Chinese, well, the figures which I hear from Chinese sources is that probably under 100,000 people have died. It started in China. Well, it was discovered first in China. And so they have a different system of organization of health system, different health systems. So there's no real scientific reason to this. And I think that all the data which are obtained in the various countries are exchanged. Everything is published. And I don't think that there's anything, this information might be retained by this or that group of people. And no, because this is plain science. And the thing which is not controlled by science in this case is the way the health system, the healthcare systems are organized. And that is different from one country to the other. It's not ideal in France, but it's not a tragedy either.
Well, I will translate this first part of your answer. Para mí la diferencia de la incidencia del coronavirus en los distintos países se refiere a la diferencia de organización de los sistemas de salud. Por ejemplo, pensábamos hace un tiempo que los alemanes eran más eficientes que los franceses, pero esto ya empieza a estar menos claro. Luego, ¿por qué en Estados Unidos, que tienen un sistema de investigación biomédica quizá más avanzado del mundo, por qué ha tenido este impacto el coronavirus? Pues el impacto se debe a las decisiones políticas. Por ejemplo, en China tienen un sistema de salud totalmente distinto del nuestro. Es decir, no hay una razón científica, sino una razón, la razón es la organización distinta del sistema de salud. Yo creo que que la información se publica toda, que no se retiene información. Esa no es la cuestión. Okay, that's first answer. And the second answer was, what do you think about the second wave of coronavirus and interaction with the flu virus?
I'm sorry that I will probably not be able to say something clear in this aspect. Well, obviously, when you are attacked by 2 or 3 viruses, it may, they're not overlapping totally in what they do, and the response is not totally identical, and so on. So it may be an additional burden, but I think that we will know in a few months. But for the time being, it's certainly good that everyone tries to get vaccinated against the flu, which personally I did yesterday here. So that's certainly going to be helpful. Now, the other question, the other part of this question was, can you repeat that other part? of this question?
Oh, it was, yeah, what you said about the overlapping about the two viruses, the flu virus. Is it going to have any effect? What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's being attacked by two dangers in the same time is never ideal. So I would guess that it is going to add, if you're not vaccinated against the flu virus, you are in danger of, your immune system will have to be strong to fight against both the flu virus and the other virus, the coronavirus. So beyond that, I think for the time being, we have no real data. And so we can just say that try to get vaccinated quickly and then wait for the next few months when we get the virus, when the community gets the vaccine against the coronavirus.
Bueno, de momento no está claro. Lo que sí que está claro es que si se produce un solapamiento entre dos virus importantes, la situación no va a ser buena, porque supone una carga adicional, una carga vírica adicional para el organismo. Lo que hay que hacer es vacunarse contra la gripe. Dice, yo me vacuné ayer, porque no es una situación ideal la de tener dos virus peligrosos a la vez. Porque si no te vacunas contra la gripe, entonces tu sistema inmune va a tener que ser suficientemente fuerte para pelear contra dos virus peligrosos al mismo tiempo. Pero de todas formas, de momento no hay datos reales. Lo que sí que hay que hacer es vacunarse rápidamente y tendremos que esperar 2-3 meses para ver cuál es la situación.
Siguiente pregunta.
San José, del periódico Levante.
Aprovecho yo también para hacer dos preguntas. La primera es hablaba sobre que la diferencia de incidencia entre países no tiene una razón científica. Quería preguntar en este sentido cómo puede ir ligada la responsabilidad individual con las medidas que tiene que tomar como sociedad o como gobiernos. Es decir, si para el sistema sanitario es compatible la responsabilidad individual y la libertad con el proteger la salud de la sociedad, y en segundo lugar, si nos tenemos que preparar para la posible venida de otros virus, igual que ha pasado en este caso, que ha pasado se supone que de un pangolín en China a la población, si esto puede ocurrir más adelante con otro tipo de microorganismos.
You said that there is no scientific reason for this different prevalence between countries of coronavirus. So you mean we have to strike a balance between individual responsibility, freedom, and healthcare in society, which is quite difficult to strike this balance between freedom, protection of health. Should we, and then the second question is, should we get ready for the attack of other new viruses?
Well, it's of course we have to be, we should be ready for attack of other viruses, and this is going to come up again. But from one disease, viral disease or bacterial disease, also bacterial disease, to the other, we learn a lot and we react much more quickly. Don't forget, well, we're speaking now probably about 1 million of people have been killed over the last 12 months by the coronavirus. But don't forget that what we call the very big flu, we call it here the Spanish flu, which is a wrong term, of course, but that claimed 50 million of people after the First World War. So we surely will not get to that level with the coronavirus. But yes, I think we should be ready. And then comes the other question, but we will be ready. I mean, because so much has been learned now, because this virus has appeared at a period where the science was ready to confront it and to understand what is going on. Before confronting it, you must know exactly what happens. And that, to a large extent, we know now. And I'll come back to the liberties and to the choices and let you translate now.
Sí, claro que va a haber nuevos virus, pero también es verdad que estaremos mucho mejor preparados y que podremos reaccionar con más rapidez. Por ejemplo, recordemos la mal llamada gripe española, es decir, la enorme epidemia de gripe que se produjo después de la Primera Guerra Mundial, que produjo más o menos 50 millones de fallecimientos. Esto no va a pasar con el coronavirus, porque vamos a estar preparados en todo caso, si se producen ataques de nuevos virus. Okay, you can proceed with the second question.
Yeah, the second question was about liberty, individual liberties, and is that right? I understood the word of saloon in the question. So you mean, are you referring to the fact that, for instance, that now in France, from this evening on, you will have to be at home at 9 o'clock in the evening and not go out before 5 in the morning, at least in the big cities, but that pertains to 20 million of people in this country. That's 1/3. So the question which is often brought up here is, you know, there are many people opposing this and say that the government is infringing on the liberties. If you cannot go out when you wish, if you cannot go where you wish, when you wish, and so on, so on. But I think it's obvious, it's a compromise which we have to do. If we want to stop the virus, we have to stop a certain number of attitudes like these festivities and so on. And that can be difficult to respect. But I think it's a matter of being reasonable. We have to accept this. And it's only for a short period. I mean, what does it mean? For 4 weeks, we'll have this block again. We had it for 2 months in early spring this year. All in all, as I say, and that's why I'm not really concerned about this problem about liberties, because I know it's very transient, and all this will come back, and then we'll just have more festivities next year or in 2 years.
Okay.
You'll find that I'm an optimistic person, but I am. And I mean, you have to be in the field.
Sí, bueno, se me puede tachar quizá de ser demasiado optimista, pero yo creo que en mi campo de trabajo hay que serlo. En cuanto al equilibrio, ¿no?, entre las libertades individuales y la protección de la salud pública, pues como saben, desde hoy en Francia hay toque de queda desde las 9 de la noche hasta las 6 de la mañana y efectivamente existe este debate en el sentido de que el gobierno está infringiendo las libertades individuales, pero yo creo que hay que llegar a una situación de equilibrio y tratar de frenar las fiestas, este tipo de actitudes y llegar a una actitud razonable. En todo caso, por ejemplo, en Francia, el toque de queda se prevé para 4 semanas. A mí no me preocupa esta restricción de las libertades individuales porque yo sé que es transitoria.
A través de
Siguiente
Spanish Television.
Sí, a mí, está claro, nos ha demostrado que tiene un optimismo a prueba de bomba. A mí me gustaría saber si también lo mantiene respecto a las fechas. Hace un mes en Italia usted señalaba que, o esperaba que en el primer trimestre del año que viene la vacuna pudiera llegar al personal sanitario y a lo largo del año al resto de la población. No sé si mantiene esa previsión, sobre todo después de los problemas que han tenido algunos intentos o grandes intentos de vacunas como los de AstraZeneca o Johnson & Johnson.
Well, yes, you seem to be very optimistic, and I would like to know if you keep your optimism after seeing the problems that the vaccines, for example, from AstraZeneca have had. 1 month ago, you said in Italy that for the next the first quarter of 2021, the vaccine would be ready for healthcare personnel and later on for the population at large. Do you still keep this timing in your mind?
Well, 2 aspects. The problems with AstraZeneca, the problem with other groups also, Johnson & Johnson, you may have read that. Those are, I mean, among the people who have gotten the infection, they are now, of course, in the millions, we know that. And we have 5 reported cases, or maybe 6, where people have returned after having been cured or after having overcome their disease. They got infected again and they had some symptoms. But those would be, for the time being, 5. Maybe there will be 200 in a few weeks or so. But this is nothing compared to the millions of people who got the disease. And then that's one point. The second point is that, as far as I know, for the time being, in none of those cases, those 5 or 6 cases which have been reported, which I've read about, in none of those do we have all the information. What was the health system before they were infected the first time? How was the health system when they overcame the infection? Was it really the same virus and so on? All this has not yet been, at least as I can tell, has not been published and accessible to us. Now, the question of the vaccines, I will actually, so you have listened, I understand, to one of my press conferences in Italy recently. Yes, and I said, and I was not the only one, I was with Professor Mantovani there, and we said that in the spring we will have access to vaccines. Now, I keep to that, and so what makes me, we are now mid of October. As I mentioned earlier, now hundreds of thousands of Chinese people in hospitals, I mean, attendants in hospitals, personnel, doctors, nurses, and so on, have been vaccinated now. We don't have, at least I do not have, the data how this worked out. But from the people with whom I talk in China over Skype and so on, I hear that they are very positive. They have, the Chinese have the feeling that and this is one of their vaccines. They have 4 now, which have have passed the step 3, which is the most important, where you check both toxicity and efficiency. And if they are, and this is just, this is 8 months, this, I'm sorry, but the sequence of the virus was published on the 10th of January this year. And now 8 months after that, or well, 9 or 10 months after that, we have already internationally a certain number of vaccines which have shown locally efficiency. Now, I'm confident that over the next 4 or 5 months, a lot will come out of data. And so there's no reason not to hope that. And well, if it's not by spring, it will be in May. May is the spring. It will be before July, I believe.
Sí, efectivamente, eso es lo que dije en una rueda de prensa en Italia. En esa rueda de prensa estaba también presente el doctor Mantovani. Y lo que dijimos es que en primavera probablemente habría acceso a la vacuna. Como ya he dicho antes, en China ya se han vacunado cientos de miles de personas que forman parte del personal sanitario. Todavía no hay datos, pero mis contactos allí me dicen que la perspectiva es muy positiva. Esta es solo una de las 4 vacunas que se están desarrollando en China y que ya han pasado de la fase 3, que es la de la comprobación de la eficiencia y la toxicidad. Vamos a ver lo que ocurre. Yo creo que en 4 o 5 meses tendremos datos suficientes y esperemos que tengamos la vacuna, si no en primavera, al menos antes de julio.
Ponedme el micro. ¿O ese? Ah, se me oye. Para concluir, porque ya hemos abusado un poco de su tiempo, quería preguntarle qué lecciones podíamos extraer de este episodio del coronavirus en materia de política científica, apoyo privado y público al sistema de ciencia y tecnología, y qué recomendaciones haría, pues en el caso de España, a la vista de los candidatos este año de su jurado en el que interviene, que es el de Medicina, si ve progreso en el nivel científico de los candidatos y de las publicaciones, etc. Y además, pues, terminar agradeciéndole infinitamente que nos haya atendido esta mañana cuando ayer llegó de un viaje tardísimo y hoy aparece fresco con una clarividencia extraordinaria, y darle también las gracias por seguir formando parte de nuestros jurados desde hace tantos años.
Well, the question I have for you is, what are the lessons that we can draw from this epidemic of coronavirus in terms of what should be the public policies to support science and technology? Can you tell us anything about that? And also, do you have any recommendations for Spain? You are in the jury for the medicine branch of these awards, of the Jaume I Awards. Do you see any progress in Spain on a scientific level? And finally, thank you very much for being with us after a long travel yesterday. You went late to bed, but here you are fresh and clear-minded this morning.
Okay, let me say the lessons which we have learned. What I would recommend, and what is going on anyway, is that we have strong collaborations between the various countries, scientifically and also politically, in terms of healthcare. And I think this is in Europe is coming up strongly now, and the European Union has reacted positively. And we have many collaborations. I mean, we Europeans have many collaborations. We also have many collaborations with the United States, and fewer, but still some significant with China. And so the sad point, which I have regretted mostly, was the attitude of one of the rulers, international rulers, against the World Health Organization. That was not positive, and that has been sort of a drawback. And then I think that we are now at the stage, well, much will depend upon the next weeks, how this is going to evolve. But so my recommendation would be very strong interaction between the scientists, strong support. Now, financial support. Now, I think in the case of COVID, the financial support is okay. We cannot, we can blame our governments, particularly what we do this regularly in France, that there was not enough support for basic research. But now, in the present case, over the last months, the financial support was adequate. So that's not a problem. Now, you translate, and then I come back to the Spanish situation. Okay.
Quizá la más importante es la necesidad de una colaboración muy sólida entre países en el ámbito científico y en el ámbito político. Esto ha ocurrido dentro de la Unión Europea, que ha reaccionado muy bien a esta necesidad. También hemos tenido una fuerte colaboración con los Estados Unidos, menos, pero también hemos tenido colaboración con China. Lo que no es positivo, por ejemplo, ha sido la actitud de algunos gobernantes muy negativa en contra de la OMS. Eso no es bueno. Y bueno, veremos dentro de las próximas semanas qué es lo que ocurre, pero en todo caso la interacción entre científicos es importantísima y el apoyo financiero por parte de los gobiernos. Por ejemplo, a Francia se la criticó por no haber apoyado económicamente de manera suficiente la investigación, pero esto se ha corregido en los últimos tiempos.
And now coming back to the other question, I have been for several years now on this committee, this prize committee, and I received a few weeks ago for this year 36 nominations, and I've gone carefully through those files, and I must say I was really impressed. Now, this is not because I'm optimistic, but I was impressed by the quality, and I have the feeling either the selection system was more severe this time, but I have the feeling that there has been a significant progress in the quality of the files. And most of these files, most of them, if not all, are really a very high international standard. And I want to congratulate Spain for, at least in the field which I have had to go through, let's say biomedical sciences, that the progress and the quality of the research which is going on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Bueno, I will take the occasion to translate. En cuanto a los premios Jaume I, pues he recibido un dossier con 36 nominaciones y tengo que decir que estoy muy impresionado por la calidad de las mismas, por el progreso tan significativo que se percibe en el nivel de los estándares, ¿no?, de calidad. Y incluso en comparación con los estándares internacionales. Es decir, que España ha progresado enormemente en este sentido y yo quiero felicitar a su país por este progreso en términos de calidad de la investigación. Okay.
Creo que es momento de concluir agradeciéndole bueno, su tiempo al doctor Hoffmann. Time to conclude today. We are very grateful for your support all the time, and we expect to see you next year if we have a vaccine and we can travel at least between France and Spain. So I knew you were eager to come this year, but we couldn't make it this time. But I'm sure that, positively sure, that we'll meet again next year. So thanks very much, Dr. Hoffmann.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
And congratulations to the translator.
Oh, she's extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
And you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias por su presencia y su interés y la calidad de sus preguntas, que también mejora España, igual que la ciencia, en los niveles de interés que tiene focalizar. Me han gustado mucho. Muchas gracias. Y... Ok. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.